Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
My name is Rodrego Byerly. I'm a member of the American Association of Public Opinion Research. I also serve as Chief Executive of Eviderus Public Opinion Research. This is an AAPOR Pioneer interview. The Pioneer interview is one of a distinguished number of conversations held with selected pioneers in opinion and market research. The purpose of the interview is to gain insight into how such pioneers utilize tools such as survey research over the trajectory of their career, insight into their longevity and luminance within the field, and also any important learnings which might be helpful for other researchers, including those who may be just embarking upon their career. These interviews are voluntary. They are audio and video recorded for the benefit of burgeoning researchers. Interviewees do not receive a participation honorarium. Finally, this pioneer interview is part of the overall AAPOR Heritage Interview Series. I'm pleased today to be joined by Dr. Robert J. Taylor, who is Director for the Program for Research on Black Americans, Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan. Dr. Taylor will be the focus of our discussion. Dr. Taylor is a member of AAPOR and an honoree of AAPOR, having accepted the AAPOR Inclusive Voices Award on behalf of the University of Michigan's Program for Research on Black Americans. Dr. Taylor notably is Harold R. Johnson Endowed Professor of Social Work, as well as Sheila Collegiate Professor of Social Work at the University of Michigan. Welcome, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me tell you a little bit quickly about the Program for Research on Black Americans. And this is I'm the current director of the program. I'm the third director. James Jackson was the first director, then Harold Neighbors, and then now me. Both Harold Neighbors and I are former students of James Jackson. And the program was recognized by AAPOR for its pioneering work on various surveys. We are about to celebrate our 50th anniversary. We are a completely soft money organization. We've done both qualitative and quantitative work. Two major studies are the National Survey of Black Americans and the National Survey of American Life. And we've also have a political science wing also, and we've done several political science surveys. And we have roughly well over 1,000 journal articles, uh, probably 125, 150 dissertations that we know of anyway, that have used our data. And the other main part is we mentored numerous students and junior professors.
Well, thank you. What an impactful and distinctive study. I look forward to delving a bit further into it and hearing more about how both of the surveys have unfolded. To start off our conversation, I'm interested to know a bit about your background and also your introduction to research. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school or college? And what were your initial interests in the world? What were you interested in that brought you to research?
So I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. I was born at Hubbard Hospital, which is the hospital historically associated with Meharry Medical College. If you may know, Meharry is a HBCU, a historically Black college and a university. It's a medical college. I was raised one block from Meharry, 2 blocks from Fisk University, and about 6 blocks from Tennessee State. And in many ways, I almost lived on their campuses. Had an Easter egg hunt once on the campus of Fisk University, as an example. Went swimming all the time at at Tennessee State and worked at Meharry under in the biochemistry lab where I cleaned rat cages and things like that, but also was mentored informally by several uh, chemists and other PhDs.
Yeah. Can you talk a bit about any specific mentors
Hmm.
who early on encouraged you to explore research and what type of mentorship did they provide?
That is a great question. Um, Early on, well, first of all, I'm a, 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 a even though I'm older, I'm a third generation um, college student at that point in time. And I always knew that I was going to go to college. Again, my mother had gone to college, my father had gone to college, and I'm raised in a college, and in a historically black college area. Um, I and so I attended Northwestern University. I was in the sociology major, and uh, it's not like I had a particular mentor during any of those periods. I had, I think, a good group of mentors in high school with the various chemists in the biochemistry lab. But older, my real first mentor was probably James Jackson in graduate school, without a doubt. Uh, and then to a little bit lesser degree, Philip Bowman, also in graduate school, even though he was a more recent graduate.
And thinking back to when you first started out,
Mm.
uh, really focused on research in graduate school, what were your interests at that point in time? What were the topics that you were motivated to explore?
That's a really good question because in graduate school in particular, so I went to Northwestern. I wanted as an undergrad. I wanted at that point I got into honors sociology. I never finished the honors because I didn't know I had to write a paper. I didn't realize until it was way too late to do that, so I didn't get the honors of official, the official tag of that. Um, but when you're in sociology, the whole goal is research. So I knew that research was critical. When I got to Michigan, I got my degree at University of Michigan. That's where, in the later years, I met James Jackson. Um, I knew that research was important. I started doing stuff on federal policies. I really thought I was going to be a policy person. It was only when I met James Jackson and heard about this survey that I got interested in survey research because I knew that this was important. I knew that this survey had never been done before.
And was there anything in particular that drew you to survey research as a method or as a tool?
Not necessarily. Um, it was more like I shouldn't say everybody on campus, University of Michigan is a gargantuan campus, but several professors were saying, yes, Jackson is doing this big survey, and this is a really big deal. And once I knew that, I wanted to get involved. So I worked really hard to get involved and tried to meet some of the people who are working there, got to know them, and through that informally, I became a member of the Program for Research on Black Americans. Let me mention at that point, we didn't have the name Program for Research on Black Americans, or almost just use the acronym PRBA. We were just called the National Survey of Black Americans because we were thinking we'll do this survey and it'd be over. But then it was very clear we're doing more than one survey. We're going to be around for a while, so we need a name. So that's where the name PRBA came from.
Right. Um, when was it that you arrived at the realization that this is going to be a groundbreaking and distinctive study?
It was really early on. Um, I knew the research, you know. I've taken classes on Black families as an example, and I knew the type of stuff that people were doing, and nobody had any data. The data that people had was at best, um, maybe census data that really didn't get at a lot of family dynamic stuff. I mean, it got at important stuff like Andrew Billingsley's book um, is really based on census data, even though it has the title on Black families. But there's only so much you can learn about the dynamics of family life using census data. Um, and so I just knew really early on that this is going to be amazing. Plus, Jackson was one of these guys that, uh, you know, uh, he could, sell snow to an Alaskan. So that was also helpful.
Well, let's dive a little further
Mhm.
into the study since we're already talking about it.
Yeah.
Um, Other than what you've already mentioned, was there anything else that was particularly distinctive
Mm.
about the research design, the population, any other aspect of the study?
So I'm gonna go through. Uh, First, we've done a good group of studies, but I'm gonna talk about three really quickly. So first was the National Survey of Black Americans, and it was supposed to be the goal was a survey on identity and mental health. But it was very clear when we were after it was funded that there just been no information in terms of national probability samples of African Americans. That this would be the first one. And so then it became more of a study of a Black family, of Black life, where we covered neighborhood, religion, family, employment, unemployment, racial identity, as well, and mental health. So cover the whole gamut of the aspects of Black life. The big issue around that caused a lot of consternation was that it wasn't a comparative study. It was a study of Black people only, and the survey, consequently, again, national survey, in-home survey. Um, um, so because of that, the sample changed. So it was more weighted. Actually, weighted is the wrong word. It was more in terms of the South. So because that's the distribution of Black people, it's more 50% in the South. So 50% of our areas or 50% of our sample is from the South. So that's that study. In 80, right after that,
And
Jesse Jackson,
if I
yeah.
can just interrupt you for a second
Hmm.
before you go on to the second study, can you talk a bit about um, the brass tacks of
Hmm.
going into people's homes, sitting
Hmm.
with them, and asking them questions on this questionnaire? How long was the questionnaire? What was it like to knock on someone's door? Would they allow you in? What was it like to sit at the table on their couch or however you did it? Can you just illuminate that for some of our
Yes.
audience?
So again, I wasn't an interviewer, but I did work with people. Obviously, I helped with the interviews. My wife, Linda Chatters, who's also a professor and worked on the study, she did a few interviews herself. You're right. You knock on the door. Then you do a short screening instrument. I believe it's called the Kish table. Leslie Kish was a professor at the Survey Research Center at where we are, University of Michigan. And then you decide, okay, based on this number of people in the household and their genders, this is the person that's the representative person. You ask to interview that person. You hope you can do it then. That's the goal, as opposed to setting up another appointment. And it was a crazy long questionnaire. Questionnaire is about 225 pages, and it took roughly, in some cases, over 3 hours. Some cases shorter. Obviously, as you know, it's based on skip patterns. Um, and you're literally you're sitting at most of the time sitting at the kitchen table. You also note if the other people coming and going, or if the person's cooking or whatever is going on, or if they're just sitting and you're talking. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Well, I interrupted you
Mhm.
to go down that rabbit hole. Let's come out, and I think you were going to
Yeah,
talk about a second, third study.
yeah. So quickly, in '84, James Jackson said, because the day today is February 19th, 2026. Jesse Jackson passed yesterday. And this is what made me think about this because Jesse Jackson was running for president. James Jackson said, "Hey, we need to do a politics survey." So we did a black politics survey that was solely politics. That's the first time that we really like, let's just concentrate on an area. Okay. And so that survey is shorter, but it's not a survey of American life per se. It's really just a survey of black politics. So then later, there's some other studies here and there. I'm going to talk about the biggest ones, and these are the ones that had the most papers. Um, the National Survey of American Life. Around 1995 or so, we said we need to redo the original National Survey. And then we said, well, what can we do to make it better? And one thing we do is number one, make it larger, which is what we did. We made it 3 times larger. So it has roughly 6,000 respondents. Number two is still in the House, but we added Black Caribbeans and we added a smaller comparison group of whites. We wanted to, there are things that you just can't do because of money. So, number one, we discussed doing more multilingual, in particular for Haitians that don't speak English. But we found that that would be too expensive for maybe 100 people to translate the questionnaire, especially the mental health issues. And then the other thing, we couldn't do African immigrants. So we're doing Caribbean immigrants, but not African immigrants, because they were too dispersed and a smaller group at that point in time, and because of their dispersion, too expensive to do. We came up, and all this stuff is documented. We came up with some new innovative sampling procedures to cut the cost, and we found that they were not only cost effective, they were as good as any other procedure. So those are the major surveys.
And what were the sample sizes, if you recall, for the Caribbean Americans, and even though you didn't do the African immigrants, what sample
Mhm.
sizes were you all thinking about?
I think the African immigrants, I think we have a small group of African immigrants in the survey that we just picked up as part of the Black population. Um, but that's probably maybe 50 people or so. The overall sample is roughly, if I remember correctly, like 6,000 and maybe 6,082, something like that. Um, uh, Roughly 3,500 African Americans, um, what, 35, maybe 1,500 to 1,600 Black Caribbeans. And the Caribbeans they're weighted based on the island and country that they immigrated from. And then about 900 white Americans. And the white Americans are live in areas that are somewhat adjacent to Black communities, are in the same locales.
You've already talked a little bit about some of the social context, political
Mhm.
context at the time. I'm wondering if you can talk a bit more about that. And I'm particularly interested, you said uh, there really wasn't an established data set available to
That's right.
researchers. There was some buzz maybe on campus, and then by the time 1984 rolled around, we have the presidential campaign
Yeah.
of the Honorable Jesse Jackson. What was it like on campus at ISR? Was there buzz around your set of researchers? Was there some sense that something momentous was happening?
I think that there wasn't as much buzz at ISR as it was around the Black academic community. I think that just being candid, that many white researchers could care less. I don't think they understood the issues. Um, like for instance, so again, because sometimes like, oh, you could wait, you could do this, but they're just things you couldn't do. So if you have a sample of 2,000 in the general population, usually usually most of the samples um, tend to undersample or have a lower number of African Americans. So we're talking about maybe out of 2,000, maybe 180, 150 in that range, African Americans. And then you just can't do anything with that. So you can't go, oh, what do black widows look like? Well, I don't know because the ends are too small. Okay. How about black divorcees? Again, the ends are too small. How about uh, uh, black people who are unemployed versus black people who are retired? Well, you can do that, but you're talking about at best maybe a two-way table because the ends again too small. So that's why our survey was so important. And the fact that it's again a probability survey is critical.
Thank you for that. Shifting gears a little bit, I'd like to think with you a bit about the survey research industry and
Hmm.
changes that we've
Yeah,
seen in survey research. You just noted some of the challenges related to sampling. You mentioned that
yeah.
as part of the program on for research on Black Americans, you all introduced some innovations related to
Hmm.
sampling. Taking a step back from that, though, what would you say are some of the major challenges that the survey research field has faced in the past during your career?
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, they get the basics. Non-response is a big, big deal. We've been very fortunate with our studies uh, because, again, the bulk of them are in-house studies. What we found is when we did a follow-up to the original national survey of Black Americans, that became a study that we did over 4 ways, but we really were losing people. And partly just because we tend to have a poorer population. So, as an example, I remember visiting schools in Flint, not around the sampling issues, but just in general. And one of the issues we had in terms of sampling, or in terms not sampling, but in terms of following the following respondents, was simply that people move so much. And I'm saying I mentioned the Flint example. I was in Flint visiting some elementary schools where they had all the names on the lockers of the kids, and they said we have to do that because the composition of the classroom changes so fast because the families are moving so much, and that's what you see within poor communities that families move a lot, and so that's one of the issues we've had to address or that we always have a tough time with.
Um, Thinking about the role of technology
Hmm.
and the changes that you've seen over the course of your career, and some of the things that survey research folks are grappling with today. Do you have any reflections or thoughts on how technology is changing or will change the survey research field?
That's an excellent question, and I want to be really honest and fair. I haven't kept up nearly as much, mainly because I'm retiring in 1 year. So the stuff I work on now is the stuff data that's already collected. Um, our research group does have a new survey that will be in the field hopefully soon, where they're taking advantage of a lot of stuff that I'm not privy to, again, because I'll be very honest, is I don't want to be involved. Bringing in a national sample is extremely stressful. Um, and it's hard to underestimate how stressful, how it's hard to not underestimate how difficult it is to bring in a sample of African Americans. I remember walking through what is the place is now defunct, Cabrini Green, the projects in Chicago, to work to do some of the basic early screening stuff. Some of the places that we were in, we were high levels of reception. People were glad to see us. We didn't have any real problems. But in the other locations that were stressful, and there's no way to get around it. And that's what happens when you're dealing with a poor population. Now, again, it's not that all African Americans are poor. We know that, but there are some concentrated poor neighborhoods that make it difficult uh, to to um, to interview in. And what we did to help with that is we hired local community people, okay, and local community people to be interviewers, and we were pretty successful with that.
You mentioned a bit about your stage of career, and
Hmm.
congratulations on your forthcoming,
Yeah.
soon to be here retirement. Looking at where you are today, what are you involved in at this stage of your career, and also what do you look forward to being
Hmm.
involved in?
Yeah. So what I'm doing a lot now is and our research program also does a lot of this is mentoring. So we do both heavy duty formal mentoring and heavy duty informal mentoring. So this is what I mean. In terms of formal mentoring, well, let me just mention James Jackson's vision was having graduate students involved at all levels of the research process, which is why we learn so much as graduate students. Um, what I do in terms of not just in terms of writing papers, but in terms of mentoring, is the formal mentoring. We have a summer workshop that we've had for starting in 1998. It was in person um, up until the pandemic, and since the pandemic, it's been online. Um, and that really is to help junior, mostly African researchers who are interested in, I should say, graduate students and junior professors who are interested in research on African Americans. And in some years, we've expanded it to Latin to people who do research on the Latino population. And one year, had enough faculty that we expanded to the American Indian population also. But our workshops, a lot of times the faculty volunteer to run them. Um, it may range from having 30 students and junior professors. And then once we got online, we could expand it. So one year we had maybe 150, 130, 150 graduate students who participated. Um, and we talk about writing and nice grants, how to publish papers, how to deal with rejection, how to look for a job, how to do a practice job interview, and how to basically negotiate the academy.
Wonderful.
Hmm.
Um, as you think back over the course of your career, can you talk a bit more about your career path?
Mm.
Um, were there any missteps that you made or that you almost made? And if so, can you describe them? And thinking alongside that, were there any points of critical decision where
Yeah,
your career could have gone one way or the other?
I would tell you that's a really good question because I'll be 74 this year, and as you get older, you get a little bit more reflective. And again, you met some of my close friends who've just interviewed, Harold Neighbors, Wayne McCullough, um, and And what I've looked at is that the times I've had what I thought was the biggest failures turned out to be the most benefit for me. These are the things that help turn things around. That at the point in time I thought, boy, this is awful, but it turned out to be good. So, for instance, when I finished from Michigan, I wanted to get a position here, but I didn't get a position. So I ended up, and I wanted to get a position at University of Chicago. And it was very close, but I didn't get that position. So I ended up going to Boston College. And with my ego at that point in time, I was not happy about going to Boston College, but it turns out it was the best thing for me. Spent 3 years there, and then I was recruited back here in Michigan. I had no idea, both me and my wife, Linda Chatters, as we drove down, uh, driving to Boston, um, with our luggage uh, and the moving vans already taking our stuff. We had no idea we'd ever be back in Ann Arbor ever in our life.
Yeah, what a journey.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
As we as we think about winding down our discussion, I want to circle back to mentoring
Hmm.
and think about APOR
Yep,
as a place where early career professionals can leverage APOR
yep.
for mentoring opportunities. So when you think about the community of survey researchers in particular that APOR represents, what would be a handful of recommendations you would make for someone who's early on in their career?
Yeah.
How should they pursue mentoring through our association?
You know, what I see when I talk to, especially a lot of my fellow professors, um, they they try to get a structure that's too big. And what I mean by that, maybe too big is the wrong word. They try to get a structure that they'll, will say, yeah, we want to set up some type of program or we want to do some more mentoring. They go, oh, I'm gonna write a grant, and with the grant we'll do this and we'll do this and do this. And then what happens? They never write the grant and nothing ever happens. My belief is, now I'm not saying you don't write the grant, but my belief is that you can do things very informally with no money. So I'm not talking about a little bit of money. I'm talking about very little money. So I'm gonna give you some examples. Um, so I was watching a television show about mentoring, and and I felt bad because I didn't feel like I was doing enough mentoring at that point in time. And even though I was doing a lot, I just didn't feel like I was doing enough. We had a what we call a mentoring postdoc program. What we found is across campus, postdocs tend to be the loneliest group. They were the group that they didn't have any orientation. Grad students had orientation, new faculty had orientation, undergrads had orientation. The postdocs were just sort of out there. So we pulled together a group um, to with the postdocs, and they would meet every week. That went on for several years, but we had a staff person who could run that very informal group. So when we lost the staff person, Dr. Chatters and I took it over, but because we had other responsibilities, it just wasn't as strong as it needed to be. So we didn't have it for maybe a year, and that's when I said, okay, I got to do something more. And that's when I started watching that television program. So what Dr. Linda Chatters and I, what we did is we just started mentoring in our house. So Christina Cross, who's now a professor at Harvard, she was our first student, and we had three of her friends, and they come over once a month to the house, and we show them like, okay, this is a paper that got rejected. Here go the reviews. This is how we responded to the reviews. This is what we did. This is uh this is a grant proposal. This is what it looks like. And so we did that, and then it got too big. Then after three people, my wife said we can't do this at the house too much because I don't want to fix any more food. So we started doing it on campus, and it got up to about 45 people that were meeting once a month. And then the pandemic hit, and that just stopped everything, obviously. But once we started to learn Zoom again, we picked it up. And now what we do, and we just did one last night, is for any student that's part of our group, if they want to do a practice interview, if they want to do a practice job talk, if they want to do a practice presentation, we do that. And then we do the other stuff also. Again, it's not quite as regular as we would like. Part of it is Dr. Chatters and I are older and we're traveling more and doing a few things, but we still think that's an important thing. And most importantly, it's free. No money, just it's just our time.
Are there any particular considerations that researchers should keep in mind as they seek to build their career?
Good question. Um, I think the main thing is, in our profession, you have to write. You can't be afraid of writing. It can't be, we hear this a lot. I hear this with our students a lot who are struggling with their dissertation. Oh, I've read all the papers, I've read all the articles. All I have to do now is write. And they're saying that as if that's the easy part. And we want to tell them, no, writing is the hard part. You start with writing, okay? You read and you write. Um, so as part of our summer programs, we talk about how to write. Um, and each person is different, but let's assume you have absolutely no time. Then even if you have no time, our goal is to write one bad paragraph a day. So that's even with people who have absolutely no time. And we know research is clear, bench writing doesn't work. So again, we talk about things like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, um, as we conclude, is there anything we have not talked about
Mhm.
today that you'd like to share?
That is a really good question. Um, I think this is a tough profession, but it's really a needed profession. I think that, especially for the people of AAPOR, we have a really good survey research master's program here at the Institute for Social Research. That for people who, if that's what they want to do, I think that's a really good program where you really learn the ins and outs of sampling and questionnaire design and things like that. Um, when we did the National Survey of Black Americans, the technology differences between that and the later surveys were amazing because everything we did with the National Survey of Black Americans we did by hand. So we had to draw the boxes for the questionnaires by hand. Everything we typed it up by hand. They'll remember this. I know it sounds sort of crazy now, but this is before word processing. Um, see, yeah. So we know how this gets ugly with cameras, and let me.
It's a little blurry. I can't quite
It's
make it
very
out.
blurry. Yeah. So this is the original survey, and if
I
you,
know what I'm looking at, though. I
I'm
can
gonna
see
give
that
you
this is a
examples.
questionnaire.
It's pretty big. Yeah. And historically, all of our questionnaires look like that.
So I think I know what this is, but please tell us what am I seeing?
This is the original questionnaire for the National Survey of Black Americans. And if you sort of see, I know you can't read it because it's backwards here, but a survey of Black American life.
And I can see that.
Okay. And that's the goal here. Now, granted, we know the questionnaire is bigger because it has skip patterns. So if you're married, you don't answer questions about when did you get divorced or when did your spouse pass, right? So obviously the questionnaire is bigger than the because it has all the questions for every contingency.
Well, thank you for sharing the original questionnaire. That certainly is a wonderful piece of history.
Yeah.
That was my last question.
Okay.
And so with that, I want to thank you very much for participating, for your valuable contributions to our industry and for this pioneer interview.
Again, thank you. There are one or two things I want to mention. Um, we have several papers that talk about our history. One is in the American Psychologist. It's I think the title is something like James Jackson's and the Program for Research on Black Americans. We have another paper that will probably be out in, I believe, October of 2026 on the Program for Research on Black Americans' Contributions to Sociology. Um, and the one I was talking about earlier was PRBA's Contributions to Psychology. But the other thing is to if you really want to learn some other stuff about us, several of our founders have passed. That's obviously James Jackson and Gerald Gurin. Gerald Gurin was one of the PIs of the 1956 Americans View Their Mental Health, which was one of the very first surveys of mental health, because the belief was at that point in time only clinicians can assess mental health and mental health issues. And this was one of the first surveys that did that. And I mentioned that because we have YouTube videos of James Jackson, Gerald Gurin, numerous others uh, talking about not as much historical, not as much personal history, but history in terms of the Program for Research on Black Americans. So I suggest anybody, if you just type in YouTube Program for Research on Black Americans, these videos will come up.
Thank you.
And thank you,
We
and
will,
thank you for.
and with that, we will conclude this interview.
Okay, thank you.